The question is, I don't know what I want in the future exactly. I know I want money, fun, and happiness. How do I create a 5-year plan and reflect on those choices in my daily life? Can you please give an example? Nothing wrong with money, fun, and happiness. I would take a little bit of a contrarian stance, though, in that while those are all good things, they're a terrible metric in order to decide how to live your life. And I'll tell you why. Fun and happiness are emotions. And the problem with emotions is that they're fleeting. I don't know anyone who is having fun 100% of the time. I don't know anyone who's euphoric, like ecstatically happy 100% of the time, even relatively happy people. The problem with using that as your North Star in life is that you're going to be constantly essentially chasing a high. I would argue if that's what you want out of life, you should go do a bunch of cocaine, because that's the best way to feel euphoric and have fun all the time. Now, obviously, that's not my real advice, because that's a disastrous way of living. Most people who are cocaine addicts do have a lot of fun, and then they crash and burn and develop health problems, social problems, all kinds of problems, right? Because you can't chase a high forever, and you know there's disastrous consequences when you do. The other problem with chasing feelings is you maybe even drug-free be having fun or being happy, and it's a Sunday afternoon and you're enjoying, sitting on the beach and hanging out and doing your thing, and then you're thinking, oh shit, Monday morning I gotta go to work and this is going to end. And now you have sort of the Sunday scaries, as they like to call it, and you're, even in the moment, while you're having fun, while you're experiencing bliss, if you will, you're not able to enjoy it because you're thinking about when is it going to end and be over, right? So that's the kind of the cruel irony, is even when you have the thing that you want, you're not able to fully enjoy it because you're so attached to it that you know that it's going to end. It just illustrates that essentially hedonism, which is the lifestyle basically that you're talking about, is not a great way to live. And in fact, we've known this for thousands of years. That's why the Greeks, some of the earliest philosophers, talked about the difference between hedonomia or hedonism and eudaimonia, or a different way of living, which is not about pleasure seeking, but it's about seeking meaning, fulfillment, and satisfaction. And that's not a feeling, it's actually an appraisal, right? So if you say, I'm satisfied with my life, that's a cognitive appraisal, meaning it's an evaluation of your life. And right now you may be going through a lot of shit. Maybe someone in your family who's sick, you may be sleep deprived, you may not be having fun, but you're like, net, I have people that I love, I have people who love me, I like the work that I'm doing, I find meaning in it, and I wake up and I'm excited to bring share my skills and gifts to the world. And so you can be satisfied and unhappy in the moment. You can be satisfied and not be having fun right now. And it's a much more stable and robust way of living your life. So that's the first thing that I would say is nothing wrong with a little bit of pleasure, but like chasing pleasure or hedonism is a terrible way of living. So what I would encourage you is actually maybe you should rethink what exactly you want in the future exactly, because those things are it's the cherry on top, it's the bonuses, it's the nice little accentuations of life, but it's not the purpose of life. I would argue. I would say a much better and more effective way of living is to identify what are the values or what are the things in life that are important to you. And let me distinguish between goals and values, because this is a very important point. Goals are like, I want to be famous, I want to make a lot of money, I want a hot wife or husband. You can say, I checked it off my list, I did it or I didn't do it. Goals are by definition achievable. The problem with them is you're gonna have some lofty goal and maybe you'll never achieve it. Maybe you'll never win that Oscar. Maybe you'll never find the trophy husband or wife. And then you're gonna say, my life is not good because I haven't achieved my goal, right? Versus a value is totally different. A value is by definition unachievable. In fact, you can live your value in any given moment. So as opposed to saying, I want a trophy wife, right? And I maybe I'll find her in 5 years. You can say, what's my value there, right? I want to be a loving person to other people. Right? That's the actual value. It's like, well, what are you going to do with your trophy wife? You're just going to hold her up like a trophy? No, you want to be loving, right? That's the character, that's the quality that you want to have with her. And even until you find her, there are multiple opportunities or avenues for you to express lovingness or loving kindness in your everyday life. Maybe you go downstairs in your building and you just say hi to the doorman and you give him a nice smile. And that's the way that you're loving. Maybe when you're on a date, you treat that person kindly and you hold a door open for her. And that's your way of being loving. So there's many ways of being loving when you live a values-oriented life, even if you haven't achieved that like great goal. The nice thing is, by the way, values are enduring. I literally thought about what my values were when I was 21, 22, and pretty much they're the same to this day. I have a value around alleviating human suffering and helping people achieve their potential and optimize their health. And I didn't know exactly how I do it. I didn't think I'd be running a company one day, but that's the best way of me expressing that value, right? And so the value always stays the same. You may come up with different goals that can achieve that, right? I can do that one-on-one as a clinician, which I do, right, in a private practice where I coach CEOs and VCs. I can do that as a professor where I train psychiatrists, the next generation of doctors, to treat other people. So that's one step removed. Or I can do it through a company where we can help hundreds of thousands, if not eventually millions of people through this platform, through the telemedicine that we're doing, etc. So if the value is around helping people, alleviating suffering, maximizing health, there are many, many different goals that I can achieve that value with. And so it allows for a great deal of flexibility in your life, much more flexibility than I need to win an Oscar, or that's the only way that my life is worth living, or that's the only metric of success that I have. What I would encourage you to do is maybe after this podcast, take a little bit of time to journal. Journaling is a great way of sort of making sense of, your thoughts, and think about what are some values that are not goals, they're inachievable, right? They're qualities more about who you want to be rather than what you want to do. And think about who do you want to be in 5 years rather than what do I want to do in 5 years? Because when you're crystal clear about who you want to be, the goals will naturally elaborate themselves. So for example, if you're like, you know what? I really do want to be, a loving person, a loving partner to someone, right? And then you'll be like, okay, well, what are the goals to do that? Well, maybe I should go out and date. Maybe I should find a girlfriend. And that's the goal. That's the expression of that thing. Let's say you have a value around health, right? You want to maintain your health and maximize that. Then you'll come up with goals about, okay, how do I need to work out, exercise, eat right, etc. They come out of the expression of that value. But if you're blocked in some way, like, gyms are closed during quarantine as we experienced in the last year, you're like, great, maybe I can't do my weightlifting goal, but there's other ways I can achieve my health goal and I have to get creative around it. That's the nice thing about values. You can always live any value in any given moment, and there's many ways of expressing it. If you're interested in this philosophy, this comes from psychotherapy called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, which I teach and practice. And so there's a great book. I'll type it in the show notes. It's called The Happiness Trap. It's written by a colleague of mine, Dr. Russ Harris, and it's a great primer essentially to ACT philosophy. And the reason it's called The Happiness Trap, it's exactly the answer to your question, which is his whole thesis is the reason that Americans are so miserable is because they're obsessed with the pursuit of happiness. And we just talked about why pursuing happiness as your goal in life is very problematic. So instead of chasing happiness, chase meaning and living a values-driven life, because you're gonna end up with a much more flexible way of living that can deal with the ups and downs much easier. And here's the trick and secret to the whole thing. People who live value-driven lives, even though their goal is not happiness, they end up happier. So that's the beautiful irony.